My name is Julie Young, and I am the board chair of Korean American Story. I just wrote this today on my phone, so I'm going to read it from my phone. How's everyone feeling? Good? Good, okay. Really want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. This is the first New York City Roar Story Slam. Woohoo! Before we get started, I apologize for being a little bit of a downer right now, but I do have to acknowledge that the Korean American Story family is pretty sad right now because we just recently lost one of our founding and longtime board members and dear friends, John Kwan. And we already miss you, John, but we feel your spirit, and I want to humbly ask that all of us here tonight use the loss of John as a reminder of how precious life is and how important it is to gather like this with community in love. Okay. For those of you who do not know, Korean American Story exists to help create, preserve, and share our stories as Korean Americans, the vast diaspora of those stories. Whether one is mixed, like my gorgeous daughter who's here tonight, whether one is an adoptee like myself, or a member of the LGBTQ community, whether you're first gen, second gen, whatever, all of our stories together are what make us a rich and diverse community. The Roar Story Slam, which will also take place in LA and Chicago later this year, is our latest mechanism to help share those stories. Why is this important? The sharing of stories brings people together. And for the storyteller, it helps you to be seen. It helps you to know that you matter, that your story matters, that you are unique and special, yet also a part of a community. So thank you to our storytellers here tonight for bravely sharing a part of yourselves with us. Thank you also to our first round judges, to the judges that are here tonight, to my friend Heesun, who will be performing, to Jessica, Kevin, everybody, HJ, Teresa, everybody who was involved in making this happen. We really appreciate all of you. And that's enough from me now. It is now my pleasure to introduce our MC for the evening. You may recognize him as Ben Kim on the Showtime series Billions. But in addition to that, in addition to acting, Daniel is also a playwright and a host. Give it up for Daniel Isaac.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you. My name is Daniel K. Isaac, pronouns he, him. I'm a gay Korean-American actor and writer based in New York City. I was born and raised in Southern California to a single immigrant Korean mother who was deeply religious and deeply conservative and deeply homophobic. So I moved to New York to put an entire country between us. And that is why we have a healthy relationship. We still talk every day on the phone, emails. I had an email from her with the subject line gay, and the entire body of the email said, "How may gay you have sex?" So logistics, quantity, I did not reply. She also loves to say things like, if she's just caught me coming out of the shower, 샤워하고 나서 고추를 차가운 물 밑에 놨어? Which translates to, did you put your penis under cold water after you showered? It's good for you. Or 똑같은 시간에 웃고 울으면 똥구멍에서 머리카락 나온다. Luckily, no boyfriend has ever complained about my hairy butt. So, quick housekeeping rule. Through those exits, up the elevator to the second floor is your restroom. Hang right. There are 2 gender-neutral restrooms for your pleasure. And our hashtag tonight is RoarNYC19. I share these stories about my mom because it was nice to be able to share what I went through from the homophobic side, or her voting for Trump, or her saying I'll never be successful as an out gay actor in New York City. And now she refuses to watch my show because cable isn't real television. Like, until I see you on network TV, I'm not watching. And it just helps to find a group of people friends, strangers alike to find empathy with. And I think that's why an event like tonight is so special and beautiful and brave of these contestants to share their stories with us. So, this is the third Roar Story Slam, and this is the first to take place in New York. Last month, these hopeful storytellers submitted their video entries in the first round of the competition, and they were narrowed down to 5 finalists by these 5 preliminary judges. If you're here, please take a stand and wave. Julie Young, whom you've just met, and Peter Kim, Juliana Sun, Catherine Hong, and KAS board member J.O. We thank you for your time and expertise for making tonight possible. And we also have this illustrious panel of judges who are sharp and experienced in the art of storytelling. And these judges tonight will award 3 prizes. Third place, $200, second prize of $500, and the first prize of $1,500. So the Tiger Mom in me says, save a portion of that money for tax purposes. Right? Okay. They will be seeing these stories for the first time, so I'm going to introduce Eugene Grace Wuertz, if you'll take a stand or wave, who's an author whose debut novel Everything Belongs to Us, was selected as a New York Times Editor's Choice and included on Kirkus's Review's Best Fiction of 2017. We have Vivian Lee, a familiar face, New York One's reporter and anchor. She's also a board member of KoreanAmericanStory.org. Mike Hale, television critic for the New York Times and a former national board member of the Asian American Journalists Association. And Paul Juhn, an actor and writer based in New York City who has performed on stages and screens across the country. He's also a founding member of Suffolk Street Films, which has produced his award-winning short film and very Korean-American tale, Works of Art. And we just did a reading together last week, so Paul's great. And we'd also like to thank Sheila Ivy Traster of SAG-AFTRA for coaching the finalists for their performances this evening. She can't be here tonight, but she will be joining us in LA Slam on April 14th. And now, for the main event, our 5 finalists will be performing in a randomly drawn order. But before we begin, I'd like you all to turn off your cell phones or any noise-making devices, please.
The paint is chipping off the walls of my house. Well, it's not my house. That's why I can't paint the room. Why there are so many bugs. When my fridge is a code, holes where the handle once was, you need to stick your fingers onto the edge, pry it open, but not too fast, or else the cabbage will fall out of the duct tape shelf that never quite sticks. So we balance, carefully. The paint is chipping off the walls of my house. On the windowsill, we hang coats to dry, pots of soup scattered like garden gnomes. We don't answer the door. The lock is broken, but unless you push really hard, you can't tell. My dad tells us we're moving next year. He says this every year. When I move to the city, closer to his work, or move back to Korea to take care of his parents. Every year, my parents had huddled around the computer monitor, looking at house after house, glistening marble and shining wood floors. The real wood, varnished and shit, not the plastic kind. Every year we look, and every year we pretend to forget his promise. The paint is chipping off the walls of my house, but it's not our problem, my mom says. It's not our house. Flies get in, but it's not our house. Half the outlets don't work, but it's not our house. We aren't staying here forever. The promise my dad made since I was 2, we aren't staying here forever. I've lived here my whole life, white faces around me. I grew up thinking I'm Chinese. My parents remind me, this isn't your home. This mac and cheese is only for your friends. We're having yukgaejang tonight. Just make sure you brush your teeth before meeting them. Just don't bring them home. My dad tells me we own a mountain in Korea. He tells me to bury him there when he dies. Lush forests where a black gravestone lies, inscribe names of my ancestors and future generations to come. All I have are dreams that my parents have fed me. Korea is like a heaven to me. It does not exist. It does not function outside of hope. My parents speak of Korea so much, I'm afraid to forget a home I've never known. But hope becomes real after high school graduation. We never moved out of the house with chipping paint. but my parents saved enough to get us to Korea. When we arrive, I meet cousins who insist on speaking English. When we drive into the country, my father's home is underwater. While he was gone, the government built a dam. He does not remember it clearly. But the grandmas there all remember him. They cry into his stomach, grasp me with shaking hands as I bow, and I say, yes, I am going to Yale. I stand at my mountain. Stray dogs lace between piles of plastic pipes, cigarettes and beer cans cemented in with the rocks. The brush is too high where the graves are. Thorns pinch at my bare legs. I am denied entry. Not even with my offering of rice wine and peaches that we picked up on the corner store on the way here. It is unforgiving. My father tells me to stay back and wait for their return. As I wait, I stare at dick sculptures. My grandpa's cousin carved the mountain into a shrine of wooden penises. First, it was a mushroom garden, then it was a vegetable farm, and now it's a sex museum. My mother says it's okay, he's an artist, but I'll have to bury my father next to a grandiose sculpture of a phallic man. My pervert uncle tries to talk to my cousins, and I set them aside on the dirt path. Let's play a game, I say. Let's pull out this grass. Grab hard at the stem. Pull out the roots. Upturn this soil. Upturn this mantle. And we can play at the core of the earth where it's the same distance from Chicago to Daegu. We can meet here and dance and play whenever we want. So we dig, and it gets dark out. And the echoes of cicadas tunnel down, and my parents are long gone. And we reach the core, and we dance, and we play in our own language, on our own time. Thank you.
I hate my grandma. Whenever I go to visit, all she brings up is, go to the top college, but pay the least amount of money. Why the hell can't you speak Korean? You're Korean. Korean should know Korean. I hate my grandma. As we sit at the dining table, the only sounds you can hear are the chewing and popping of our jaws. No words can explain the lack of words there are. We strain our necks not being able to communicate. So to compensate for the empty conversations, I begin to pick up the pace in my consumption. My consumption of my bibimbap is far ahead of my tongue that tries to consume Korean. My tongue that rejects every taste, every syllable, every intonation. At the end of the day, I can't digest my food nor my language. I hate my grandma. So I fought back for 7 years, perhaps, telling her that, hey, you're giving me indigestion. Stop force-feeding me something that I had already detested. I hate my grandma. I went about my childhood with a slouched back. So she demands, 야, 어깨 피라고. I told you to open up your shoulders. Well, no. You are the reason for my stooped confidence. If it wasn't for you, I would be here smiling, laughing, trying to enjoy my existence as this byproduct of cultural integration. But because of you, I'm having this identity crisis. I hate my grandma. Keep me away from those straight A's and no B's because I want to be who you don't want me to be. You see, I see my future through a camera lens while you see it through a microscope. This makes no sense. I hate my grandma. I hate you so much. Selfish for me to say, but one thing I don't hate about my grandma is her food. Wait. You know those leftover grains of rice on the bottom of the bowl? Or the leftover kondegi or remains at the bottom of the soup? That's my Korean. I left it behind, but my grandma insists and urges me to finish. She wants me to be full on everything that I have been given and worries that I am still hungry and tells me to keep eating. And when I do finish all my food until the bowl is wiped clean, my grandma is proud of me, tells me good job, and feels much more than just satisfactory. She feels that her work is done to provide me with plenty, something she did not have growing up. Education was something out of her control. She couldn't cross that bridge unless she paid the toll. So in the end, school was just too far away and out of reach. Had to stop at the 5th grade all so suddenly. Since then, she has longed for an education. Every single bit. Oh shit. Even her native tongue was something she had to quit. She wasn't allowed to speak Korean, even though Korea was the country she lived in. She wasn't allowed to speak Korean. She couldn't speak Korean. She couldn't speak Korean. Korean was forbidden. You see? This is the divide. We do not see eye to eye or coincide with each other. This is the generation gap. We are lost in translation, both through English and Korean, and the messages in her words which are hidden. 공부 열심히 해, or study hard, translates to, I wish the best for you, and I want you to lead a bright future. 한국말 좀 해, or speak some Korean, translates to, I want to become closer to you and share more conversations together. What I thought to be nagging turned out to be caring. My grandma wants me to speak Korean so I can talk with her. As simple as that. My grandma tells me that education transforms you from a being that is human to a human being. My grandma says I am not American Korean, I am Korean American. If I take the first syllable of the name that I call you, it is grand and Hale. Grand. You are grand and you have conquered it all. Hale. 할수. 할머니. 할머니 다 할 수 있어요. 할머니, you can do everything. I love you, Grandma. I commend you for everything that you have gone through. And I thank you for everything that you have gone through for yourself and for me.
I love pho. All the pho 69s, fucking goods. What the fuzz and for reals? I don't know what it is with Korean American obsession with pho, but at my home church, people get pho together more religiously than they pray together. Whenever my family and I go out to eat, my mom will dump and dissolve the sauces straight into the soup while I make a pretty little dip on the side. I always order a combo, sneak my tripe into my sister's bowl, and keep the steak and tendon for myself. And after the meal, I would get high on my meaty fingers that now smell like pho forever. Yeah, no, I don't shower. But the best part of the experience is the thinly sliced raw onions smothered in sriracha that make a perfect replacement for kimchi. One morning, I woke up early and went inside the kitchen and caught my mom in action, slurping those scarlet raw onions by themselves. Thank God it was bright outside, because otherwise I would have thought she was a Christian, the Korean equivalent of a zombie. As such, pho became my family's favorite food when we moved to LA from Korea in 2002. My parents don't speak English, or Vietnamese for that matter, but when it comes to enjoying good food, language doesn't matter. But for me, it did matter. In the winter of 2004,
my mom, sister, dad, and I went to Canada to extend our visa, where my parents brought me, a sixth grader, as their translator. Ominous. On the first day, we went to see Niagara Falls, and we were full on feeling that tourist spirit, though a little empty on the inside without. The next morning, the embassy. And oh my God, the long lines, the security guards, and the stacks of documents were all intimidating. But what was really unbearable for me was the pressure. How can anyone expect a sixth grader who's only been in America for 3 years to bilingually navigate the technical terms surrounding immigration? The interviewer at the window, frustrated at her failing communication, told us to come back the next day with the proper translator. I retorted, "But we have to catch the plane tomorrow." To which she replied, "You can't go back without this visa." Oh, fuck. That's when it hit me. I hadn't realized that my parents had essentially placed the destiny of my family right at the tip of my young tongue. Get this, without this visa, we would be stranded in Canada or detained until we're deported to Korea with all of our belongings, friends, and livelihoods left in LA. Back at the grungy hotel, my dad lied helplessly in bed while my 5-year-old sister was crying for ramen, a cheap substitute for... I wanted her to shut up, but my mom, with her maternal superpower, trekked in the Toronto snow to find that overpriced ramen. It must have given her a sense of mission in the midst of hopelessness. Thankfully, we did end up finding an adult translator, got the visa, and caught the plane last minute. I remember the beautiful night lights of LA as the plane descended, and the overwhelming sense of homecoming. We called our relative picking us up from the airport to order us pho for takeout. At last, in our good old apartment, the first thing we did was heat up the MSG saturated soup and the cold clump of rice noodles packed in styrofoam bowls. Our first meal back in America, the taste of familiarity. Fast forward to college. I'm fluent in English without losing Korean. But now, my challenge is the language of love. Pho provided an enticing incentive to go out on dates, particularly with one girl who also loved pho. And she had a car to the closest pho restaurant. Oh yeah! College was a complicated time for me as I had yet to reconcile my same-sex attraction with my then evangelical Christian faith. In the meantime, eating pho together with my gay crush kept me nourished until I eventually came to full terms with myself. Pho is no longer a means to spend time with someone otherwise unapproachable. It is a worthy end, in and of itself, toward which I can walk alongside whoever I choose. Yeah. It might seem ironic that a Vietnamese dish could thus punctuate my journey as a queer Korean-American immigrant. But the very fact that a Vietnamese dish, rather than Korean, could fulfill such role speaks to the emergence of new identities activated through the encounters among the diverse communities here in the States. The entangled experiences of many intersect, in this case, in that bowl of pho. But not exactly in the same way my mom used to dump and dissolve everything into one bowl. No. America is not a dissolution of identities into monolithic flavor. It is a conglomerate of individuals infused with what everybody brings to the table. From Korean Americans bonding over pho to Vietnamese restaurants naming themselves after American puns, the enabling of such intersections, to me, is America. My legitimacy here, barely sustained by visas, is as tenuous as a strand of noodle. As proven by my sister, who recently had to move to Korea permanently despite her growing up here all her life. With my parents still living in LA, my family of 4 do not know when the next time all 4 of us will be able to share a meal together. Even so, pho symbolizes my relocated home in America's embrace. Pho is a memory of my forbidden crush before I burst open the doors of my closet. Pho is a hope of a family that eats together. And finally, pho is my soul food away from Seoul. So hit me up if you want to get pho with me. You can have my tripe. Thank you.
I am searching for answers, buried in the language of my parents that I can hardly speak. And I'm wrestling with a part of me that people perceive as weak, as if I can't see the divide between Korean-American. I am well practiced in the art of aiming straight for the mouth upon being asked whether I'm from the North or the South, because if my grandfather did not escape the North Korean draft of the 1950s, it is likely that he would not have lived and I would never have existed. So which is it? I am loud with that sound of a risky yell from a downed soldier on the 38th parallel, powered with breath, laced with cigarettes and kimchi smell. So I am unafraid to be rude to the people who misconstrued what my mother made me for lunchtime as a punchline in elementary school, who now consider kimchi a superfood. I am just another one of many, and I am seen as one of the few. I am not the one with a slanted view. So damn the fools that confuse culture with character, who stare with wide eyes and ears upon hearing no accent, because upon remembering when their stares inflicted wounds that took forever to mend, I'd consider myself practically a veteran then, who now speaks English better than them. I am quick to admit that it's difficult to stay mellow when there's 50 shades of gray and only one exoticized shade of yellow. I am not finished. I am fighting to be distinguished. I am named Dongjin, the truth from the east, where the sun rises like smoke from a fire refusing to be extinguished. I am not your model minority. I am neither story or statistic for your pity or enjoyment. I am taking pride in the number of minds that I disorient, might even crack a smile while I'm checking lies and destroying them. I am not another simple token. I refuse to be reduced to a joke that carries words unspoken. I am here for more than your diversity quota or to explore the world cordially with curious Georges. I am, of course, angry. It's easy to get mad when you're adding up all the factors and you're the only one doing the math. I am presently on pages, dripping rage, frustration, Korean wrath while trailblazing towards my future. Call it a career path. I'm going ahead. I'm going ahead with everything my family provides. So I will not be downsized by the shape of these eyes, because I can see a whole society that many could only try to see. I'm taking pride in my brothers and sisters building dynasties. I'm on the rise like an uppercut. I'm the product of parents who had to suffer much in a land where they had no one to trust, with a language that they had to muster up with tongues sprung up from another country, never rusty or broken, just foreign. Sometimes I wonder if I've been cursed by being birthed, to simply live life until the day I'm driven away in a hearse, because we're all the product of two people making a person, for better or worse, and yet I am the product of lives, abandoning all they've known to move to the other side of earth, and I am hoping to heaven and hell and back, that at least for them, I will have been worth it.
Ironically, it was in the Chinatown neighborhood of Boston where the man screamed in my face, "Go back to your country." He had no idea how complicated that was for me. I was Korean before I was American. The delicate yellowing papers from Social Welfare Society in Seoul state my birth date as August 17th, 1977, with the word accurate in hopeful parentheses. At least I know I had around 9 months with my birth mother. I think about us together in whatever time we had, growing as close as two humans could be. Maybe we live in an empty house, so she keeps the TV on for company, and I giggle with her at funny movies, and she feels my happy kicks. Maybe we live with the love of her life, and they slurp spicy noodles together, wipe gochujang off each other's cheeks, dancing in the kitchen as he gently makes his way around her as we grow bigger. Or maybe she cries, and I worry about her even then. Always there is her heartbeat, the constant, reassuring, unstoppable sound keeping both of us alive. I wonder if she was in a hospital or alone when she could no longer hold on to me. I wonder if she wanted to see me as much as I longed to see her face when I finally opened my eyes. And I wonder where she went. I've heard that children in Korean orphanages were given the orphanage owner's family name. About 20% of the South Korean population, 1 in 5 people, has the family name Kim. I became one of the 10 million when I was brought to Angela Orphanage on June 17th, 1978, and named Kim Hyun-hee. On December 18th, 1978, I was brought to JFK Airport and became one of the 200,000 Korean children sent out of the country for adoption. I was handed to the mother and the family that named me Jennifer Kim Lisko. That was the year that 56,323 babies were named Jennifer, one of the 14 years it was the most popular girl's name, adding up to over 800,000 of us during that time. Lisko is the last name of my father's gregarious, generous Italian side of the family, which my Russian mother joined when they were married. When I was married on May 20th, 2000, I became Jennifer Kim Brennan. After several wonderful years together, we separated, and I changed my last name to Kim. I was ready to be known as Korean by my name. Even though I grew up in America, I still feel 5,000 years of Korean history holding on to me and whispering in the background. Sometimes I take the bottle of sesame oil down from the kitchen shelf and breathe it in, my favorite smell. It fills me with indescribable joy. I heard about a study where male mice were introduced to the smell of cherry blossoms. When the scent was paired with a mild electric shock, they learned to fear the smell, even when the shock wasn't administered. When they reproduced, they had children and grandchildren who also feared the smell, even the first time they smelled it, and even though they were never shocked. Even female mice in other locations who were artificially inseminated with the scared mice's sperm had children and grandchildren with the same reaction, even though they were also never shocked and never met their father. So what else do we inherit from ancestors who we've never met or seen or held? What else are we genetically programmed to respond to? How about sound? I ignored K-pop for a really long time until at 54 seconds into a song by the group BTS, the progression from one musical note to another suddenly made me cry. I couldn't understand the Korean lyrics, but the soulful yearning melody felt like something I needed so much in my life in order to keep breathing, like exhaling without even realizing you were holding your breath. Even growing up, I always felt a longing, an emptiness wandering in my mind. Over time, I went to therapy and took medicine, all of the things we do in America, but it was always there. When I learned the Korean word han, it was like something had punched me in the stomach, like something I'd known in my bones my entire life. It's hard to explain or translate, but it's the Korean concept of feeling sadness and rage and injustice, even if you didn't experience the turmoil of the country's history firsthand. But I also learned the word Chung, a deep-seated love and affection and warmth, a communal bond shared by all Koreans. I feel this when I go out with other Korean adoptees. We toast with soju and wrap warm, crispy barbecue in perilla leaves with whole cloves of garlic and bean paste, swiping it through a perfectly balanced mix of sesame oil and salt. We bellow out karaoke, and the bond feels effortless. When I go back to Korea, I wait for this click, the key to unlocking the customs and the culture, the words and the body language, all of the things I've lost. In 2018, I watched with the world as the Winter Olympics opened in Pyeongchang. There's a wide circle of adorable dancers swaying to the music in Suharong tiger hats, and I wonder if I could have been one of them if I had stayed. In the same year, I shouted in protest in the Women's March through New York City. The country feels fractured even deeper than the cultural divide I've felt my whole life, and I feel like I don't even know how to be American anymore either. So where do I belong? When I was told to go back to my country, I didn't even know what that meant. But maybe it isn't where I came from, or not even where I'm standing right now. Maybe it's who and what I am, and all of the ways my country and history tries to hold on to me invisibly. My country is in me, and in who and what I love, and every day I discover more about how to find myself instead of waiting to be found. So don't worry about me. I'm already home. Thank you.
Suyeon, your story had so much beautiful and vivid imagery. The chipping paint, the broken refrigerator, and of course the penis sculptures. Please send one back for me. I would gladly have a garden of penis sculptures. And there'd be one less for your dad to be buried next to. So, Koreans are morbid. Welcome. When was it that you visited your father's mountain, and what does it come to mean to you? And there's a mic for you there.
So I visited it after my high school graduation. My family went to Korea. I think what it meant to me was kind of that like nothing was sacred. I feel like, especially as like a child, like I was born in Korea, but I came here when I was really young. And I feel like my parents always hyped it up so much, like, oh, like we're home, like it's like this, like it's so nice. And I feel like a lot of Korean Americans feel this way, where we have this image of Korea that our parents have like always shown to us, but we forget that like Korea isn't static, like it's always changing too. And when we got back, like there's just so many things that I didn't realize were gonna happen. Like my parents had no idea that there was gonna be like full of penises. Like that was truly development that happened. Apparently my grandpa and his cousin, like they fought a lot about that. But it's there now, and it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of silly. I feel like you really feel like, oh, like I belong in this one place. Like I'll belong in Korea when I go back. But if you go there, obviously, like it's nothing that like you'll ever imagine. And I feel like the only way to go on from this like as a diasporic person is like creating our own spaces. And that's why I ended with like the imagery of me and my cousins like digging a hole to our own house or to our own little I don't know, area we can, or in time that we can like hang out with each other, and like, because they want to speak English, but I want to learn Korean, and like we have this new hybrid identity, and that we can just like, I don't know, like build relationships through that, and yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thanks. Claire, thank you for sharing that very powerful story about your relationship with your grandmother. I wanted to ask if you've ever told her in person if you love her in English or Korean, and what her reaction might have been.
Like, actually, I think it was either two people. It was not me that did it first. It was either my twin sister, shout out to her over here. It was either her who let out the affection first and sort of made it easier for me to show my affection, even saying like I love you in either I love you or or 사랑해요.
Yeah.
It was either my twin sister or it was actually either my grandma who said it first, because I have both recollections, and it's something that sort of just happened in the moment and I didn't really think about it, but now that I see it, it's now even like part of, I guess, just our language of like affection, and how like I even presented in my poem, like food was like a big language for us. And so even just saying that at the end when we're like parting ways, it's not as like extravagant and meaningful to me in some sense, but it's still like a part of like our language and how we interact with each other now. So it's, as I said, it's either I love you over the phone or it's 사랑해요 with like 애교 and stuff. So yes.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Jimin,
Hey.
I love pho too. I love how you associate pho with key moments of your life, including that time you had to translate for your parents, which I still have to do for my mom, who's like a functioning real estate agent, but question mark. So, since I'm always exploring this relationship with my immigrant mother, I'm curious about your relationship with your parents now that you've come out as well, and if that some things have changed because of it, or what has shifted or grown closer or apart.
What a deep question.
Mm.
It's gotten through rough patches and now it's better. But I think what's interesting is that my mom and I used to share such aligned and similar worldview, and I've since very in an accelerated manner drifted from that. So I've talked about language barrier a lot in my story, and it's not just about Korean versus English, because again, I can speak both very well. But it's about we used to interpret certain events in our family history through the lens of providence and such. And even when we talk about our current things to overcome and things in the future, my mom would always bring speak in religious terms that I can't really adhere to anymore. Mm-hmm. So I think that is kind of complicated. But I mean, again, it's gotten better. The hurt, she's homophobic, but that doesn't. It's a lot to ask of me for her to suddenly become accepting, because it is so ingrained in her entire worldview. It's not just one rusty nail that you replace, and the hurt goes both ways, because I one time used the education card of my mom, to be honest. Your world, your life is narrow, whereas I was exposed to more things, therefore I know better, although I lived many decades fewer. With my dad too, queerness has become such a big part of my life in terms of communities and activities, but that's something that I don't share with my parents, so that limits our communication a lot. So for example, tonight, that was part of my story, but when I told my parents about this, all I said was, "Oh, I'm talking about the Canada incident." And to my dad, I said, "Your only appearance is lying helplessly in bed." Yeah. But I want to end with some of the recent things that they have individually said to me. My mom said, out of her frustration, she said, "나도 너랑 소통하고 싶어." I also want to communicate with you, and that sort of broke me. And I realized that I really didn't try hard enough to meet her at the same eye level. And my dad also told me that I'm still his daughter, but he tells me these sweet, cheesy things through my sister, never directly. So we kind of outsource our loving relationship to my middle sister. Yeah, but it's good. Thank you.
Thanks. I always thought the whole "it gets better" phrase never worked for Koreans or kids of immigrants. But what does work is your parents will get older and our parents all want to move in with us, right? And guess who wants to move to Astoria, to his tiny 2-bedroom now, despite all the gay sex I have in the other bedroom? So maybe they'll move to Korea to your sister's place, but you never know. And then try to translate scissoring into Korean. It'll be really... Is that inappropriate? No, we're all adults here. Okay. Oh, you don't have a mic. It's fine. John. Incredible words as weapons. Truly, thank you for teaching us about snaps. I think that's I do it all the time, and people are like, "Why are you snapping?" Anyway, what do you think is one of the biggest challenges you face as a Korean American? I think you elucidated some of that in your poem, but if you can expand on that more.
So, I guess one of the biggest challenges of being Korean American is figuring out what exactly that is. Just because, when your parents immigrate to America or however you end up here, it's like you have this diasporic bubble that you're in, but at the same time, you know you're not supposed to stay in that bubble forever because, you know, that's your parents, you know, that's the generation before you. And so you grow up with your peers, you have all these ideas of like, you know, what is what and what is not, or what is Korean, what is not, and you find yourself on this crazy large spectrum between Korean and between American. And I think, you know, the other day, this is a little off topic, but or not really off topic, but sorry. The other day, I read a study written by this Harvard student about how EDM plays a role in like Asian American social, just like our culture, you know, and like that's where people find community. And I thought that was just nuts because it's kind of like Americans with football. It's just a very weird thing, you know? But nonetheless, you know, the spectrum between or Korean and American, it just has all this crazy diversity about it. And I think finding your place in there is the most difficult thing.
Yeah. Well, if anything has been exemplified by our 5 storytellers tonight, it's to see that there can be such a vast array in this tiny label of Korean American where we are all boxed into, and yet here is this diversity of storytelling and background. So thank you for sharing tonight. And Jen, your story told us about how being Korean might be an indelible part of us, no matter our backgrounds. How do you think the Korean American community can better embrace adoptees?
Oh, thank you. Embrace is a beautiful word. I think I obviously can't speak for 200,000 people, but I think we're all very different, just like the stories here. It's cool. You can give everyone one sentence of what they should talk about, you know, your Korean American story, and everything can come out different. Just like siblings in one family, you can all have different experiences. So we would appreciate, of course, not being generalized, just like any marginalized community. I think if anyone asks questions, you just think, would I want to be asked if my mother really loved me? I mean, it's kind of, you know, a strange question for some people, but my mother does. She's right here with my father. Both of my parents are here.
Hi, Mom and Dad.
So my story was a good one. It was a positive one. I have friends, unfortunately, who didn't have positive experiences. So they're all very different. You know, I think not speaking Korean is just something even that Korean Americans deal with here and get criticized for, but what can we do, you know? But I think just being Korean and being American, being both, being neither, I always tell people wherever you are, it's okay, you're fine.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, I'm gonna ask you guys to sit down again. Before, just to extend your torture and suspense, we were supposed to have a Q&A with Heesun earlier, but she was, you know, in the heat of performing, and so now I get to interrogate her instead, and I may or may not talk about scissoring. So, you know, since we've already talked about buttholes and lesbian
ready for that
sex,
too.
welcome back.
Thank you.
You had a refresher.
I
Got
did.
to-
It was amazing. You guys did a great job.
Thank you so much for performing earlier. And I wanted to ask, you know, in your bio you say that that this art form literally saved your life.
Yeah.
Could you talk more about that?
Well, it's, you know, kind of going off of the whole, you know, the adoption and her whole story about that. A lot of adoptees have very similar stories where they feel like they don't know where they belong. You have, you know, your adoptive families give you a lot of love, but there's always like a part of you that even they can't fill. So you're trying to find it. And, you know, I found it through my faith. You know, I actually was kind of the opposite of you. I didn't really, my parents were like, they believe in God, but they weren't like, they didn't push me in that direction. So I actually found him on my own, you know? So that really helped me in my identity. And then I was a huge hip hop fan. So kind of put the two together and I said, hey, let me rap about God. And I don't know if a lot of you know, but Christian hip hop is actually getting bigger. So it's actually a thing, you know? So I'm trying to get it bigger. But yeah, so that's kind of how it happened. It's a way to release what I go through, just like how they do it through storytelling. I do it through hip hop. So.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Where'd my question just go? So your inspirations, your role models growing up, they all seem to be.
let's go down that
Yeah,
route.
let's go down that path. I don't know, you didn't think I'd let that go, did you?
I actually, when I was like 13, real quick, I really listened to a lot of my artists are West Coast. I don't know, so I was really into Warren G. Anyone like? Wow, no one. Okay. So I was really into that when I was like 11. I don't know how that happened, but and like I said, I was listening to it in the car. My mom started going nuts, and I took the tape player out, and that was the end of that. But Warren G, and then I got into Will Smith. I think I just thought they were cute, and then I just kept, they're cute.
Yeah, I did too.
So I went to Will Smith, and then I don't know, I got like a gangster thing happened within me, and then I started liking Tupac.
Yeah.
It was the poetry, it was just the lyricism that really, after the looks part, and then that's how I started getting really into.
And your inspirations are all Black identifying African American artists. Did you ever find one that was Asian American or Asian that you could look up to?
No, so like
Right.
No,
Right.
Being from New York, it's all, I'm into, boom bap, hip hop and stuff. So I was always centered in that. And then it wasn't until a couple years ago I really got into the Korean community, and there was the K-hip hop is a thing, like K-pop, and there's actually K-hip hop. So I've been doing that a lot. I went to Korea, I performed at this competition there, Show Me the Money.
Nice.
I didn't see any money. I didn't get very far, but it was it was fun. I didn't learn. I can't speak Korean. The whole show is in Korean. I was like, why am I here? But it was a good experience. It was fun.
Courage.
So it was good times.
Awesome. And if people wanted to look up more of your music, to know more about you?
Heesun Lee, HeesunLee, Instagram, Miss Heesun Lee, Heesun Lee Music, Facebook, Spotify. Album just dropped, so you could just go stream that real quick.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you so much. One more round of
Thank
applause for Heesun Lee. Okay, contestants, now we're there. The judges are back, and if the judges could please join me on stage now, your turn in the spotlight. And performers, when you hear your name called, please come up to the stage as well. And if you could stay up here, I have a note that says, we have to do a group photo at the end, because we're Korean. I love pictures. So, judges, I'll hand it over to you. If you could please announce our two honorable mention winners first.
That's my job. And just to extend the torch a bit more, can we all give it up for Daniel, please? Daniel, you could have emceed the daily guillotine beheading, and the condemned would willingly approach the blade. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel I have competition in the emceeing world because you stepped in for me, and oh my goodness, you have been excellent. Thank you so much for your dulcet tones. So beautiful. So I have, the honor of announcing our two honorable mention awardees. This was really difficult, but I think we, as judges, all agreed that the common theme of transition was really well established by all of our storytellers, and it came down to a very hard decision. And our first honorable mention is Suyeon. So, in The Paint is Chipping Off the Walls of My House, what we really loved was that you took us down this rabbit hole of some darkness and some regret, and then at the very last moment, quite unexpectedly, you shone a light at the end of the tunnel and just brought it back. Your transition of hope was really lovely. And so we wanted to commend you for doing that. And being first in the lineup is really not easy. So congratulations, Suyeon, you did an excellent job. Oh my God, this is like the closest to American Idol I will ever get. Sorry. Our second honorable mention, again, another really difficult decision, Jimin Hong. What we loved about your performance was the subject matter was very different. You threw in a curve there when you talked about a deportation. We didn't really see that. Is that what you were referring to? There was a deportation? No, there wasn't. Oh, there wasn't. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry, my mistake. Okay, too much wine for me. Sorry, my mistake. But you had a pluckiness that you carried through, even when you needed to recover from a couple of moments. Wow, you just kept your energy up, and you kept the comedy going, and you had the crowd laughing and engaged all the way through to the end. And that was really effective storytelling, so thank you so much. Yeah. Congratulations.
Okay, very honored to present the third place winner, which is John O. Congratulations. As a fellow English major, so you're an English major, correct? Yes, I really appreciated your attention to detail, to the words. I could tell that you chose every word with intention and precision, and your performance was incredibly powerful, polished, and we really appreciated the message that you sent forth, which was also political, personal, and universal. So, congratulations.
So I feel like there should be a drum roll now. This is the most dramatic of the announcements. Our second place award goes to Jen Kim. Your story spoke to me especially because I was taken away from my Korean mother when I was 1 year old and raised by Germans and Norwegians in the Midwest. So I appreciate very much the clarity and the honesty with which you addressed the adoptee experience and the way you carried on through what was clearly an emotional story for you. And it was no prize being last in this amazing group either, I think, so congratulations.
First place goes to Claire Choi. Your wonderful story about your grandmother. I think all of us thought about our own harmonies in the audience. And in the beginning, you talked about the differences and the passion behind it. And in the end, it was the sameness and what you guys wanted. And it's all about love and about being Korean American, and just really appreciate it. Thank you.
And there you have it, the 2019 New York Roar Slam.